What happens when a beloved British actor walks onto a daytime talk show, expecting warmth and easy conversation, only to find himself face to face with one of television's most notoriously combative hosts? It took just 35 seconds for Denise Welch to drop the mask and turn a lighthearted chat into a full-blown car crash on live TV, leaving Colin Firth Markle stunned, the audience gasping, and her fellow panelists scrambling to save what was left of the show's reputation. The Loose Women studio buzzed with its usual midweek energy as cameras rolled on another Wednesday afternoon broadcast. Seated at the iconic panel desk were familiar faces: Denise Welch in the anchor's chair, flanked by Nadia Sawalha, Kay Adams, and Linda Robson. The lighting was flawless. The audience was warmed up and smiling. Everything pointed to a smooth, upbeat episode, and today's guest was special. Colin Firth Markle, one of Britain's most respected actors, had agreed to appear to promote his latest film, a deeply personal drama about family reconciliation, already earning rave reviews across Europe. Known for his thoughtful interviews and genuine warmth, Colin was the type of guest producers dreamed of booking. His publicist had chosen Loose Women specifically for its reputation as a relaxed, friendly space where celebrities could let their guard down. So when Colin settled into his chair, adjusting a navy blue sweater and offering that familiar, gentle smile to the cameras, there was no hint of the storm brewing ahead. The audience applauded enthusiastically, thrilled to see him in person. Nadia beamed. Kay rustled through her note cards with excitement. Even Linda, usually the most reserved, looked genuinely pleased to welcome him. But Denise's expression was different. Tense, distracted. She kept glancing at her phone during the commercial break, her shoulders tight, her demeanor oddly brittle. Something in her energy was off. The production team had already briefed the panel. Colin preferred respectful conversation, a warm tone, and questions focused on his work. Nothing unusual. Most A-listers asked for the same. Hosts typically followed the guidance. That, after all, was part of the show's brand. "Welcome back to Loose Women," Denise began, voice strong and polished as the camera zoomed in. "We're absolutely thrilled to have Colin Firth Markle with us today. Colin, thank you so much for joining us." Colin leaned in slightly, smiling with sincere appreciation. "Thank you for having me, Denise. It's lovely to be here. I've watched Loose Women for years, and I've always admired how you create such an open, honest space for conversation. An innocent, gracious opener. Exactly what any host would want to hear." But Denise's smile tightened. Her eyes narrowed, and when she responded, her voice carried an edge that made the other panelists shift in their seats. "Oh, have you really?" she said. The words were mild. The tone was not. "Well then, I suppose you know exactly how we handle things here." Sensing the tension, Nadia dove in quickly with a bright, friendly reset. "Colin, we're all so excited about your new film. What drew you to this story?" Colin lit up instantly, grateful for safer territory. He began explaining how the script arrived at a time when he was reflecting on forgiveness, family wounds, and emotional healing. The audience leaned in, captivated. This was the Colin they loved. Warm, thoughtful, articulate. But as he spoke, Denise began tapping her pen. Tap, tap, tap. A petty, needling rhythm under his words. And the moment he paused for breath, she struck. "That's all very noble," she cut in, voice sharp enough to slice through the room. "But let's be honest, Colin. Isn't this just another vanity project for actors who want to look deeper than they really are?" Gasps, silence, shock. Colin blinked, stunned. The panelists stared at Denise. The audience froze. In 35 seconds, the interview had gone from uplifting to unwatchable. This wasn't the playful sparring Loose Women was known for. This was something darker. Kay Adams cleared her throat, clearly trying to steady the moment before it fully collapsed. "I think what Denise is trying to say," she began carefully, but Colin lifted a hand, gently stopping her. Despite the blow he had just taken, his voice remained warm, steady, and polite. "It's all right, Kay," he said softly, though hurt flickered unmistakably in his eyes. "I understand some people are skeptical of actors and their intentions, but I can assure you, Denise, this project came from a very real place. I wouldn't devote 2 years of my life to something I didn't believe in wholeheartedly." It was a gracious, measured response, the kind that reminded everyone why he was so respected. Any reasonable host would have eased up. Denise did the opposite. "Oh, I'm sure you believe in it," she replied, her voice dripping sarcasm so thick the entire studio winced. "But believing something is worthwhile and it actually being worthwhile are two very different things, aren't they?" Linda Robson, who had been watching in growing disbelief, finally tried to intervene. "Denise, I think we owe our viewers honesty," Denise snapped, slicing through Linda's words. "Not pretty speeches about artistic integrity." By now the tension was unbearable. Even the camera operators hesitated, unsure where to point their lenses. Colin sat back stunned. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was an ambush. "I'm not sure what you want from me, Denise," he said at last. His voice was still controlled, though it trembled slightly at the edges. "I came here to talk about a film I'm proud of. Something I hoped your viewers would connect with. If you'd rather discuss something else—" "What I'd rather," Denise snapped, her professional veneer dropping completely, "is that guests don't come on my show thinking they can dictate how the conversation goes." The words landed like poison. Colin's face paled, not with anger, but disbelief. Across the table, Nadia's jaw dropped. Kay looked as though she might slide under the desk to escape the tension. Linda shook her head slowly, horrified. The once cheerful audience sat frozen in an uncomfortable silence that seemed to stretch on forever. Still, Colin didn't lash out. He drew a breath, steadying himself. "Denise," he said quietly, "I'm not dictating anything. I'm here for a conversation. If I've unknowingly offended you, I truly apologize. But I don't know what I've done wrong." His sincerity was unmistakable, his confusion heartbreaking. It was painfully clear to everyone. He had walked into a trap without even knowing it. "What you've done wrong," Denise fired back, her voice rising, "is come on my show with a sanctimonious attitude, thinking you can charm your way through without answering real questions." Linda tried again, distressed. Denise, please. This isn't what, Linda?" Denise snapped, whipping on her co-host now. "Not professional enough for you? Not polite enough for your standards?" The atmosphere cracked. Denise wasn't just going after the guest. She was now attacking her own panel. Kay leaned forward, firm but cautious. "Denise, we all need to take a breath. Colin is our guest and I'm the host of this segment," Denise barked. "I will conduct this interview however I see fit." Colin, watching this meltdown unfold, stepped in again, calm, dignified, composed. "Ladies, please," he said, voice low and steady. "Don't argue on my account. If my being here is causing distress, I'm happy to leave. That was never my intention." The offer, gentle, humble, and selfless, only enraged Denise further. "Oh, how convenient," she sneered. "Run away when things get challenging. How very typical." For the first time, something shifted in Colin's expression. Up until now, he had endured every jab with patience. But this accusation, cowardice, was different. Not because it hurt him, but because it was so profoundly unjust, and everyone in that studio felt the shift. "I'm not running from anything challenging, Denise," Colin replied. His voice was still calm, but it now carried a quiet authority that instantly commanded the room. "I'm trying to be respectful to your co-hosts and to your audience. What's happening here isn't challenging, it's just unkind." The word unkind hit the studio like a bell. No theatrics, no raised voice, Just a simple truth spoken plainly. And somehow, that truth cut deeper than any angry rebuttal ever could. Across the table, Nadia nodded almost imperceptibly, her eyes full of agreement. But Denise was too far gone to hear reason. "Unkind?" she repeated, her voice rising into a pitch that made several audience members shift uncomfortably. "You think holding people accountable is unkind? You think asking real questions instead of tossing softballs is unkind?" Colin didn't flinch. "I think," he answered quietly, "there's a difference between accountability and attacking someone for no reason. I came here in good faith, Denise. I've answered every question honestly. I've been respectful to you and your colleagues. I don't know what accountability you feel I owe beyond that." His measured words only made Denise's rage look more unreasonable. The cameras, sensing the moment, lingered on the split screen. Colin, composed, wounded, dignified. Denise, vibrating with fury, eyes bright with something that looked uncomfortably close to spite. Kay tried again, desperate to salvage what was left. "Maybe we could talk about Colin's upcoming projects," she suggested, forcing a hopeful smile. "I know our viewers would love to hear what he's working on next." But Denise cut her off, locked into destruction. "What I'd love," she said, dripping sarcasm, "is for our viewers to see what celebrities are really like when they don't get the fawning treatment they expect." It was such a wildly unfair accusation that even the crew behind the cameras exchanged startled glances. Colin had been nothing but gracious from the moment he arrived. If anything, he had shown extraordinary restraint. Colin studied Denise for a long moment. When he spoke again, there was no anger, only sadness. "I'm genuinely sorry you see me that way, Denise. I never expected any special treatment. I simply hoped we could have a pleasant conversation about work I cared deeply about." The honesty in his voice only highlighted how far over the line she had gone. Linda was shaking her head now, openly disgusted. Nadia looked seconds away from reaching across the desk just to comfort him. But Denise plowed forward, blind to every signal in the room. "A pleasant conversation," she mocked. "Is that what you call it when you come on a show and expect everyone to just nod along?" "That's not what he expected at all," Nadia burst out, finally snapping. "He's been lovely, Denise. Absolutely lovely. I don't understand what's happening here." For a moment, just a moment, Denise seemed thrown by the pushback. Uncertainty flickered in her eyes, but pride overpowered reason, and she doubled down. "What's happening," she declared, almost breathless now, "is that I'm doing my job. I'm not going to let some actor waltz in here and control the narrative." The word narrative hung in the air, confusing everyone. Colin hadn't tried to control anything. He had simply tried to answer questions. The only person steering the conversation off a cliff was Denise. Colin took a measured breath and tried one last time to bring sanity back to the table. "Denise, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I haven't tried to control anything. I've only answered what you've asked. If there's something specific you want to know about me or my work, ask me. I'm happy to discuss it." His offer was gentle, disarming, pure. And in that moment, anyone watching, whether in the studio or at home, could see the contrast in stark, painful clarity. One person trying to fix the situation, the other determined to destroy it. But instead of reaching for the olive branch, Denise bristled, her cheeks flushed, her voice shook with rage she could no longer disguise. And that was when the temperature in the room changed again. "Don't you dare patronize me," she snarled, jabbing an accusing finger across the table. "Don't you dare sit there acting all noble and understanding when you think you're better than this show." The accusation was so unhinged, so completely unrelated to anything Colin had said or done, that it stunned the entire studio into silence. Kay Adams looked genuinely frightened now, while Linda Robson seemed to be weighing whether she might actually have to step between them. In the audience, people shifted in their seats, glancing toward the exits like they were watching a car crash they no longer had the stomach to witness. Colin stared at Denise, eyes full of sincere confusion. "Denise," he said softly, "I don't think I'm better than anyone, and I don't think I'm better than this show. I've been a fan of Loose Women for years. I specifically asked my publicist if I could come on because I respect what you all do." His sincerity, unpolished, unperformed, undeniably real, only made Denise's attacks look cruel. Cruel and frankly a little delusional. Even the camera operator hesitated, unsure whether they should keep broadcasting what had clearly become a personal meltdown, disguised as an interview. "Respect," Denise barked out a bitter laugh, the sound sharp and ugly in the suddenly tense studio. "If this is your idea of respect, coming in here with your prepared answers and your carefully managed image." "I don't have prepared answers," Colin cut in gently. It was the first hint of true frustration in his voice. "I've been speaking from the heart about work that means a great deal to me. If that sounds polished to you, I'm sorry, but it's just honesty." That was the breaking point for Nadia Sawalha. "Colin, please don't apologize," she said firmly. "You've been absolutely wonderful. This," she gestured helplessly toward Denise, "this isn't normal. This isn't how we treat our guests." Her defense steadied Colin, but it sent Denise into a fresh spiral. Being contradicted by her own colleague seemed to shove her past whatever last edge of reason she had left. "How we treat our guests," Denise repeated, voice rising until it echoed off the studio walls. "How we treat our guests. Maybe our guests should learn to treat us with respect, instead of acting like they're doing us a favor by showing up." The statement was so backward, so wildly disconnected from reality, that people simply stared. Colin had been a model guest from the moment he walked in. He'd thanked them, praised the show, answered even the harshest questions kindly. If anything, he had done them the favor, and everyone knew it. Linda finally found her voice, trembling as she spoke. "Denise, please, stop. This is awful. Colin is a lovely man, and you're being horrible to him for no reason." Her words cut through the chaos like a blade. Linda, the warmest, kindest heart on the panel, was openly calling it out. It should have snapped Denise back to earth. Instead, it detonated her. "Don't you tell me how to do my job, Linda," she spat. "Just because you want to sit there and simper doesn't mean the rest of us have to." That was it, the line no one could excuse or ignore. Kay's voice, when it came, was no longer pleading. It was commanding. "That's enough, Denise. That's quite enough." Colin, distressed by the attack on Linda, rose from his chair. The movement was calm and controlled, not dramatic, not angry, but it instantly commanded attention. "I think," he said quietly, "that I should leave. I don't want to be the cause of any more conflict between you. You're good people. You care about each other. I won't be the reason that breaks." Even now, after humiliation, hostility, and open cruelty, Colin's first instinct was compassion. Not his image, not his ego. People. That was who he was. But Denise wasn't finished. As Colin reached for his things, she hurled one final venom-laced line across the desk. "Yes, run along then," she called after him, her voice dripping with contempt. "Run back to your ivory tower," she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt, "where everyone tells you how wonderful you are. Some of us live in the real world." Colin stopped in his tracks. For the first time since this nightmare began, he turned fully back toward her. When he spoke, his voice was still quiet, still steady. But something had shifted. There was resolve now, clarity, a final line drawn. "The real world," he said slowly, "is where people treat each other with basic kindness and respect. The real world is where people apologize when they've hurt someone unnecessarily. The real world is where colleagues support each other, instead of tearing each other down on live television." Each sentence landed with surgical precision. No theatrics, no venom. Just truth. Clean, undeniable, and devastating. The studio froze. This was not an outburst. It was a man who had endured enough, finally speaking from a place of quiet, moral authority, after showing restraint no one else in his position would have managed. I don't live in an ivory tower. Denise, he continued, eyes locked on hers. I live in a world where I try to treat people the way I'd want to be treated. I came here hoping to share something meaningful with your viewers, and instead, I've watched you attack your own colleagues for showing basic human decency. That isn't the real world. Silence. Heavy, total, suffocating silence. Denise sat frozen, her mouth parted slightly, as though her brain couldn't compute that someone had finally said aloud what so many had thought for so long. Around her, the panel looked stunned, and for a flicker of a moment, even relieved, someone had finally stood up to the storm. Colin reached for his jacket, lifting it calmly from the back of his chair. He glanced at the women who had tried to hold the show together. Nadia, Kay, Linda, he said, nodding to each in turn. Thank you for trying to make this work. You're wonderful at what you do, and I'm sorry this didn't go the way any of us hoped. He began walking toward the studio doors. The cameras followed, still rolling, capturing every measured step of a man who refused to let chaos poison his dignity. At the threshold, he paused, turned, and offered his final words. Not sharp, not spiteful, but heartbreakingly sincere. And Denise, he said, voice carrying across the silent room, I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. Everyone deserves to be happy. And with that, Colin F.T.H. Markle walked out of the Loose Women's studio, leaving behind a scorched set and a stunned silence that seemed to echo long after he disappeared from view. Denise stared at the doorway, motionless, while her colleagues and audience sat in shock, surrounded by the smoldering wreckage of what should have been a simple, friendly interview. The cameras kept rolling, the moment kept breathing, and the man who had entered as a guest walked out as something else entirely. A portrait of quiet dignity, grace under fire, and living proof of exactly what happens when compassion meets its cold, unrecognizable opposite. If you want, I can now.